court has effectively ended affirmative action in college admissions, and I strongly disagree with the court's decision. I've always believed that the promise of America is big enough for everyone to succeed, and that every generation of Americans, we have benefited by opening the doors of opportunity just a little bit wider to include those who've been left behind. I believe our colleges are stronger when they're racially diverse.
The text of the Civil Rights Act, Title VI, specifically says that race and ethnicity must not be a factor in educational endeavors. It's quite simple, and the court has recognized that it is quite simple. There cannot be a carve-out for what is now called, basically skin color diversity. When we talk about diversity, we're not talking about individualized characteristics of individual students. We're talking about how they look. And what the diversity movement really fails to understand is that how a student looks doesn't tell us anything about who that student is, what's important to that student, the various qualifications and interests, likes and dislikes.
It's not a good day, I think, for those who care about opportunity and continued progress when it comes to being inclusive of African Americans. And my blood boils when I think about how this is being done in the name of anti-discrimination, ending discrimination.
You can't have a racial box on the application. You can't, I presume that if someone describes their race in an essay, you can't just automatically say, aha, we know their race now, let's admit them. But if you're genuinely interested in the experience they've had related to their race, whatever their race might be, that can be given positive value.
You can look at
email exchanges from inside the BBC, they talk about the risk of violating Indian laws. It's easier to rake up the freedom of speech debate, but does it give anyone a free pass to knowingly violate the law? America supports India because it needs India's support in return. And India is working with the US because it suits India's interests. This is how geopolitics works. Last night, he diffused a crisis with his defense minister. But today, Netanyahu was confronted with a new problem. His cabinet seems to have rebelled against him. The UK is looking at the Indian subcontinent to fill its coffers. That India seems to be negotiating from a position of power, like a partner and not a former colony. The US and Russia are dangerously close to an armed conflict. This year, 2023, New Delhi will be the capital of global diplomacy. For a country as diverse as ours, with 88% of the population illiterate, it was a very big deal to write a constitution, and that too, the world's largest. Meanwhile, if we may, here's a Republic Day gift from India for the BBC. A list of suggestions for the BBC for their upcoming documentaries. Number 1, the Kohinoor and the colonial loot. Number 2, an outdated monarchy and unhealthy obsession with the royals. Number 3, racism in 2023. We're waiting.